Deep in the void between the spiral arms of the Milky Way, a massive vessel drifted silently through space. Its hull, scarred by countless micrometeorite impacts over millennia, still bore the proud insignia of Earth's United Space Command. The ship's name, Eternal Hope, had long since faded, but its precious cargo remained unchanged, 10,000 humans in cryogenic sleep, preserved in perfect stasis since the Great Exodus. Admiral Reed of the Galactic Council Security Fleet stared at the holographic display showing the ancient human vessel. His crystalline appendages trembled slightly, not from the cold of space, but from fear. After 3,000 years of undisputed dominion over the galaxy, the Galactic Council's worst nightmare was becoming reality. "The stasis pods are still functional," reported his science officer, whose translucent body pulsed with nervous energy. "Power readings indicate automated revival sequences have begun." Reed's outer membrane darkened, the equivalent of a frown for his species. The timing couldn't have been worse. The galaxy was already destabilizing, with multiple species beginning to question the Council's authority. And now, the humans were returning. Most young species in the galaxy knew humans only through historical records and frightening bedtime stories. Tales of a species that had fought the mighty Galactic Council to a standstill, despite being centuries behind in technology. Stories of warriors who could survive in environments that would kill most sentient beings, who could continue fighting even after sustaining injuries that would incapacitate any other known species. But Reed's people remembered the truth. They had been there during the Great War, had witnessed firsthand why the Council had ultimately chosen to negotiate rather than continue fighting. The humans' resourcefulness, their ability to adapt enemy technology, and their sheer determination had proven too costly to overcome. The peace treaty had been simple: humans would go into cryo-sleep and leave the galaxy in the Council's care until their automated systems detected that the political climate had stabilized. In return, the Council would ensure their ships remained undisturbed. "Sir," the science officer's voice quivered, "we're detecting rising power signatures from their medical bays and auxiliary systems. The revival process has reached stage 3. Reed knew what that meant. Within days, the first humans would wake up. The Council had grown complacent over the millennia, had forgotten why they feared humanity in the first place. But Reed hadn't forgotten. He had studied the historical records obsessively, had analyzed every battle, every encounter. "Send word to the Council," Reed ordered, his voice steady despite his inner turmoil. "Tell them the sleepers are awakening. And may whatever gods they believe in help us all." As the message was transmitted, Reed continued to watch the ancient vessel. Inside those metallic walls, 10,000 members of the most dangerous species the galaxy had ever known were about to return to consciousness. The humans were waking up to a galaxy that had changed in their absence, but Reed suspected it was the galaxy that would have to adapt to them, not the other way around. The first hints of system activation were already visible through the ship's viewports, lights flickering to life in sections that had been dark for millennia. The humans were coming back, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The Galactic Council's emergency session erupted into chaos as the news of humanity's awakening spread through the Grand Chamber. Representatives from 100 different species argued in their native tongues, while translation devices struggled to keep up with the cacophony of protests and demands. High Counselor Max, an ancient being composed of pure energy contained within a crystalline shell, raised all 4 of his appendages for silence. The chamber gradually quieted, the fear in the air almost palpable. "The treaty is clear," Max's voice resonated through the chamber. "We cannot interfere with the awakening process. To do so would be to break our word, and we all remember what happened to the last species that betrayed humanity's trust." The chamber fell silent. Everyone knew the story of the dust worlds, once thriving planets reduced to barren wastelands after their inhabitants had attempted to destroy the sleeping human vessels. In the observation deck of the Eternal Hope, the first human to awake from cryo-sleep stood quietly. Captain Tom Miller watched the alien ships gathering at a respectful distance, his weathered face showing no emotion. The revival process had been exactly as planned. He was first, to assess the situation before waking the others. The ship's AI, Emma, projected a holographic display of the current galactic political situation. The Galactic Council still maintains control, she reported, but their influence has weakened considerably. Multiple species have developed independently, and there are signs of increasing instability. Tom nodded, his military training helping him process the 3,000 years of history he had missed. "Show me Earth," he commanded softly. The hologram shifted, showing their home planet. It had recovered well during humanity's absence, the environment had healed, and the scars of their desperate last stand had faded. But it remained officially quarantined by council decree, preserved as a memorial to the species that had fought the galaxy to a standstill. "Begin revival sequence for the command staff," Tom ordered, his voice firm. "It's time to remind the galaxy why the treaty was made in the first place." In the council chamber, a young representative from a newly evolved species dared to speak up. "Why do we fear these humans so much? They are primitive by our standards. Their technology is ancient." Admiral Reed, who had just arrived from his observation post, moved his crystalline form into the center of the chamber. "You don't understand," he said, his voice heavy with dread. "Their technology isn't what made them dangerous. It was their nature." He activated a historical hologram, showing footage from the ancient war. Images flashed of humans continuing to fight with broken limbs, of them surviving in toxic atmospheres through sheer determination, of them turning enemy weapons against their creators with impossible speed. "They call their home planet Earth," Reed continued. "But we called it Death World. A planet of such harsh conditions that it bred a species capable of surviving almost anything. They don't just adapt to adversity, they thrive on it. And now they're back." On the Eternal Hope, more stasis pods hummed to life. The command staff was awakening, scientists, strategists, and soldiers who had volunteered for the long sleep. Each of them had been chosen not just for their skills, but for their ability to adapt and make difficult decisions. Tom watched as the first of his fellow officers began to stir. Soon, humanity would need to decide its place in this changed galaxy. Would they reclaim their role as warriors? Become peacekeepers? Or forge an entirely new path? As he pondered these questions, a message arrived from the Galactic Council. They were requesting a meeting, not demanding, not ordering, but requesting. Tom allowed himself a small smile. Some things, it seemed, hadn't changed at all. The galaxy still remembered why humanity had earned its respect, and perhaps its fear, so long ago. The meeting chamber aboard the Eternal Hope had been prepared for the historic encounter. Captain Tom Miller stood with his newly awakened command staff, 12 humans who represented the best of their species. Across from them, the Galactic Council's delegation waited, their various forms betraying signs of nervousness despite their diplomatic training. "Welcome back to the realm of the conscious," High Counselor Mack said, his energy form flickering slightly. "We have maintained our end of the treaty. Earth remains untouched, and your ships have been protected." Lisa West, the ship's chief diplomat, stepped forward. Her gray hair was still wet from the revival process, but her eyes were sharp and alert. "We appreciate the Council's commitment to our agreement. However, we notice significant changes in the political landscape of the galaxy." The Council members shifted uncomfortably. Admiral Reed spoke up, his crystalline form reflecting the chamber's lights. "The galaxy has evolved during your sleep. Many new species have risen to prominence. Some question the Council's authority. And that's why you let our revival sequence activate," said Commander James, the ship's tactical officer. It wasn't a question. His dark skin still bore the faint marks of cryo-sleep, but his voice carried the weight of certainty. The humans had programmed their ships to awaken when galactic stability reached a critical threshold. The Council could have tried to prevent it, but they hadn't. The question was, why? High Counselor Max's energy form pulsed with what might have been embarrassment. We face a crisis. A species from the outer rim, the swarm, has begun aggressive expansion. They do not respond to diplomacy. They do not negotiate. They simply consume. Holographic images appeared, showing entire systems being stripped of resources by massive, insectoid ships. The humans watched in silence, their expressions unreadable. How many worlds have been lost? Tom asked quietly. 17 in the past solar cycle, Reed replied. Our weapons barely scratch their ships. Our defenses can't withstand their attacks. You need warriors, Lisa finished for him. You need humans. The silence that followed was deafening. 3,000 years ago, humanity had fought the Council to a standstill because they had to. Now, the Council was asking for that same fighting spirit to be turned against a common enemy. Tom walked to the viewing window, watching the stars. The command staff waited for his response, though they already knew what it would be. Humanity had gone into cryo-sleep not just to avoid conflict, but to preserve their species until they were truly needed. Wake the rest, Tom ordered. All of them. If we're going to fight a war, we do it at full strength. The Council members visibly relaxed, but Tom wasn't finished. However, we have conditions. We're not your weapons to point at an enemy. We're your allies. Equal partners in the defense of the galaxy. The Council agrees, Max said quickly, perhaps too quickly. We will provide you with access to current technology, star charts, everything you need to understand the present situation. As the Council members hurried to begin the negotiations, Commander James moved closer to Tom. They're desperate, he whispered. The swarm must be worse than they're telling us. Tom nodded. Probably. But that's why we're awake. Humanity didn't evolve on a death world and survive endless wars just to sleep through the galaxy's darkest hour. Throughout the massive ship, thousands of stasis pods began their wake-up sequences. Engineers, soldiers, scientists, and colonists who had volunteered for the long sleep would soon rejoin the world of the living. The galaxy had changed during their slumber, but humanity's core nature remained the same. They were survivors, adapters, warriors when needed and builders when possible. The swarm was about to learn why even the mighty Galactic Council had chosen to make peace with the humans of Earth. The eternal hope hummed with activity as thousands of humans emerged from their 3,000-year slumber. The ship's massive training halls, designed for exactly this purpose, were filled with newly awakened crew members receiving updates on the current galactic situation. In the tactical center, Commander James studied the swarm's attack patterns with growing concern. They're not just consuming resources, he announced to the gathered leadership. They're learning from each engagement. Adapting their strategies. Tom and Lisa exchanged worried glances. On the main display, recordings showed swarm ships changing their formation after each battle, improving their efficiency. Their ships, resembling massive dark insects, moved with increasingly coordinated precision. Show me their first attack compared to their latest, Tom ordered. The images appeared side by side. The difference was striking, what had begun as chaotic consumption had evolved into calculated destruction. They're displaying intelligence, Lisa observed. Collective learning. Each battle makes them stronger. Dr. Anna, the ship's lead scientist, pointed to data scrolling across her screen. The Council's weapons are energy-based. Clean, efficient, and completely ineffective against the swarm's adaptive shielding. We need something more primitive. More human. Kinetic weapons, James said with a grim smile. Sometimes the old ways are the best ways. The ship's fabrication facilities, dormant for millennia, roared to life. Humans had brought their own technology into stasis with them, not because it was better, but because it was different. Sometimes, different was exactly what you needed. In the Council's Emergency Command Center, Admiral Reed watched in fascination as the humans began their preparations. Their methods seemed chaotic, unpredictable, everything the Council had spent millennia trying to eliminate from galactic civilization. They're arming their ships with projectile weapons, he reported to High Counselor Max, physical ammunition. Metal and explosives. Max's energy form flickered with confusion. Such primitive weapons, against the swarm's advanced shields? The swarm adapted to our energy weapons, Reed reminded him. They've never encountered anything like this. Back on the Eternal Hope, the first tactical simulation was underway. Holographic swarm ships faced off against human vessels in a virtual battle. The humans had spent 3,000 years in stasis, but their combat reflexes were returning quickly. Their shields are designed to disperse energy, Anna explained as the simulation played out. But kinetic impacts, that's different. The force has to go somewhere. The simulation showed human ships launching synchronized volleys of tungsten rods, accelerated to near-relativistic speeds. The swarm's shields flared brilliantly but couldn't properly disperse the physical impacts. Their hulls, optimized for energy resistance, buckled under the primitive but devastating assault. We'll need more than just weapons, Tom said, watching the results. The swarm learns from every encounter. We need to be unpredictable. We need to be human. Lisa smiled. That's why the Council feared us, isn't it? Not because we were stronger or more advanced, but because we were unpredictable. We didn't follow their logical patterns. And now that very trait might save them, James added. The swarm can adapt to patterns, but humans, we specialize in chaos. The fabrication facilities continued their work, producing weapons that the galaxy hadn't seen in millennia. But more importantly, the humans were awakening to a purpose. They had slept while the galaxy grew peaceful and complacent. Now, when faced with an enemy that adapted to every pattern, humanity's chaotic nature might be exactly what was needed. Send word to the Council, Tom ordered. Tell them to evacuate their forces from the swarm's next predicted target. We'll make our stand there. Let's show them why humanity never needed advanced technology to be dangerous. The staging ground for humanity's first battle against the swarm was the Centauri border system, a region of space rich with mineral resources. Council ships retreated as ordered, their crews watching in a mixture of fear and hope as 5 human vessels took up defensive positions around the system's main mining outpost. Swarm ships detected, Emma, the AI, announced aboard the Eternal Hope. 3 carrier-class vessels approaching from the outer system. Tom stood on the bridge, surrounded by his newly awakened crew. Every human present had trained for combat before entering cryo-sleep, but this enemy was unlike anything they had prepared for. The swarm ships were massive, their dark hulls seeming to absorb both light and hope. Remember, Tom's voice carried across all human frequencies, they expect logical patterns. Energy weapons. Standard military doctrine. Let's show them something different. The first swarm carrier launched its attack swarm, thousands of smaller ships moving in perfect, horrifying coordination. Their formation was flawless, optimized based on countless victories against the Council's forces. Launch the mines, Tom ordered. From the human ships came what appeared to be debris, chunks of metal, broken ship parts, even what looked like waste material. The swarm's formation adjusted slightly to avoid the larger pieces, exactly as predicted. They're analyzing the debris, Anna reported from her science station. Looking for threats, now. At Tom's command, the debris field came alive. What had appeared to be space junk revealed itself as a cloud of semi-autonomous weapons. Small thrusters activated, turning the field into a deadly web of kinetic mines. The swarm's perfect formation shattered as explosions rippled through their ranks. Their shields, designed to repel energy weapons, provided little protection against the physical impacts. But the swarm was learning, already adapting their shields to better absorb kinetic energy. Second phase, Tom ordered. Show them chaos. The 5 human ships broke formation, each executing completely different attack patterns. The Eternal Hope rolled and accelerated straight toward the nearest carrier. The other ships scattered in seemingly random directions, their movements appearing uncoordinated and desperate to any observer. Lisa, watching from her diplomatic station, smiled as she saw the swarm's response. They're trying to predict our pattern, but there isn't one. Commander James's tactical display showed the swarm ships hesitating, their collective intelligence struggling to analyze and counter the humans' apparently erratic behavior. In that moment of confusion, humanity struck. Railguns mounted on the human ships opened fire, launching salvos of tungsten rods at near-light speed. Traditional missiles, their warheads containing simple chemical explosives, followed in their wake. Some swarm ships adapted their shields in time to deflect the railgun rounds, only to be torn apart by the missiles. Others successfully intercepted the missiles but were pierced by the tungsten rods. They can't adapt to everything at once, Anna observed, her screens filled with data from the battle. Their collective learning works against them, they're trying to find a single solution to multiple problems. The swarm carriers, recognizing the threat, began to launch more attack ships. But the humans had anticipated this. From the Eternal Hope's launch bays came squadrons of fighters, each pilot flying with individual initiative rather than following coordinated patterns. This is why the Council feared us, Tom said quietly, watching the battle unfold. We're not just unpredictable, we're individually unpredictable. Each human makes their own choices, their own split-second decisions. The battle raged on, the void filling with light from explosions and the dark shapes of destroyed swarm ships. The human vessels took damage, serious damage, but they kept fighting, their crews adapting and improvising with each passing moment. Finally, after what seemed like hours, the remaining swarm ships began to retreat. They had encountered something they couldn't easily adapt to, human unpredictability. But Tom knew this was just the beginning. The swarm would analyze this battle, learn from it, and return stronger. Send word to the Council, he ordered. The first battle is won. But we'll need every human awake and ready for what comes next. The swarm now knows we're a threat, and they'll adapt to deal with us. The aftermath of the battle transformed the Centauri border system into a laboratory of warfare. Human scientists and engineers swarmed over captured swarm debris, while Council observers watched in amazement as the supposedly primitive humans began to unravel the secrets of their enemies' technology. Look at this, Anna said, projecting a hologram of a swarm ship's neural network. She stood in the Eternal Hope's main conference room, addressing both human leaders and Council representatives. Their ships aren't just connected, they're part of a single, evolving intelligence. Admiral Reed's crystalline form shifted with concern. That explains their adaptation capability. But how did they respond so quickly to your tactics? Because they're not just learning, Commander James replied, pointing to specific sections of the neural pattern. They're sharing experiences across their entire network. Every ship, every drone, adds to their collective knowledge. Tom studied the hologram intently. But that's also their weakness. They think as one, adapt as one. They can't handle multiple different threats simultaneously because they're trying to find a single perfect solution. The conference was interrupted by Emma's urgent announcement, multiple swarm signatures detected in nearby systems. They're attacking simultaneously across 30 different locations. The room erupted into activity. The tactical display showed swarm forces striking Council worlds in patterns that seemed random at first glance. But Lisa, who had been quietly analyzing the data, saw the truth. They're not random targets, she announced. They're testing different strategies against different defenders. They're running experiments. The council members present showed signs of panic, but Tom remained calm. They're adapting to us. Trying to find patterns in how different worlds defend themselves. Show me the attacks that have been repelled. The display highlighted successful defenses, mostly worlds where humans had already helped implement their unconventional strategies. But the swarm's attacks showed disturbing new variations. They're combining their energy weapons with kinetic impacts, Anna observed. Learning from us. And each successful adaptation is being shared across their network. Then we change the game again, Tom declared. He turned to High Counselor Max, we need every human awake and deployed. Not just soldiers, we need our artists, our dreamers, our most unpredictable minds. The swarm adapts to patterns, so we'll give them chaos. The council chamber erupted in argument. The idea of unleashing thousands of unpredictable humans across the galaxy terrified them almost as much as the swarm. But they had no choice. Within days, human ships were spreading across council space. Each vessel carried a mix of military personnel and civilians, each group approaching defense in their own unique way. Artists designed impossible battle formations. Musicians coordinated attacks based on rhythm rather than tactical doctrine. Engineers jury-rigged council technology in ways that made their original designers cringe. On a mining colony under swarm attack, human defenders used the planet's magnetic field to turn space debris into a whirlwind of destruction. At a gas giant's research station, they vented atmosphere in precisely timed bursts, creating a deadly dance of pressure waves that ripped apart swarm ships trying to adapt to conventional weapons. The swarm is gathering a massive force, James reported during an emergency session. They're pulling back from individual attacks, combining their ships into a single enormous fleet. They're trying to concentrate their adaptation capability. Tom nodded grimly. They think if they bring enough ships together, their collective intelligence will be able to handle anything we throw at them. They're learning, but they still don't understand. Understand what? Admiral Reed asked. That humanity's strength isn't in our weapons or our tactics, Lisa explained. It's in our diversity. Our inability to be predicted. The swarm thinks gathering more ships will help them adapt faster, but they're about to face thousands of humans, each thinking and acting independently. The tactical display showed the massive swarm fleet assembling. It was larger than anything seen in the galaxy's history, a dark cloud of ships that seemed to devour the light of distant stars. Send the call, Tom ordered. All human ships, all colonies. It's time for our greatest strength, our chaos, our creativity, our individuality, to face their ultimate test. The final battle is coming. The final battle began in the vast emptiness between the Perseus and outer arms of the galaxy. 10,000 human ships faced the largest swarm fleet ever assembled, a writhing mass of black vessels that blotted out the stars themselves. The Council's remaining forces watched from a safe distance, their sensors recording what might be the most important battle in galactic history. They expect us to attack together, Tom's voice carried across all human channels from the bridge of the eternal hope. They expect us to have a plan. Let's show them what humanity really means. At his signal, the human fleet exploded into action, but not as a coordinated force. Each ship, each squadron, acted independently. Artists turned warriors created battle formations based on ancient paintings. Scientists deployed experimental weapons they'd created by combining human intuition with council technology. Civilian ships turned their mining equipment into unexpected weapons. The swarm's collective intelligence struggled to process the chaos unfolding before it. Its adaptive algorithms, designed to find patterns and counter them, encountered a battlefield where no two attacks were the same. Their neural network is overloading, Anna reported, her screens showing the swarm's confusion. They're trying to adapt to everything at once. The battle transformed space itself into an artist's canvas of destruction. Some human ships launched clouds of simple metal ball bearings, turning space into a deadly hailstorm. Others used modified Council gravity generators to create unpredictable spatial distortions. A group of former music teachers coordinated their attacks to create resonance patterns that shattered swarm hulls. Commander James watched in awe as a squadron led by a former stage magician used holographic technology to make their ships appear to be where they weren't. They can't adapt to what they can't understand, he realized. And they'll never understand human creativity. The swarm's response was to gather its ships closer together, increasing their collective processing power. Their massive fleet condensed into a tighter formation, their shields combining into a single, immense barrier. Now! Tom ordered, and humanity revealed its final surprise. From the cargo holds of every human ship came thousands of small pods, the contents of their remaining stasis chambers, repurposed into weapons. Each pod contained a simple but different automated system, programmed with the random thoughts and ideas of newly awakened humans. The pods slammed into the swarm's combined shield, each one executing a unique attack pattern. Some exploded with conventional force. Others released electromagnetic pulses. Many simply spun in strange patterns, broadcasting random frequencies. Each one demanded the swarm's attention, forced its collective mind to analyze and adapt. The massive alien intelligence tried to process everything at once. Their shield fluctuated as it attempted to counter thousands of different threats simultaneously. In their drive to adapt to everything, they became vulnerable to anything. Their network is cascading, Lisa announced, watching the readings. They're burning out their own neural pathways trying to find patterns in chaos. The swarm's mighty shield collapsed as its collective intelligence overloaded. Their perfectly coordinated fleet fell into disarray as individual ships lost their connection to the group mind. In that moment of vulnerability, humanity struck with everything they had. The battle that followed was short but decisive. Without their adaptive capabilities, without their perfect coordination, the swarm ships were just machines. Advanced machines, but still no match for human ingenuity and determination. Hours later, Tom stood in the council chamber, surrounded by representatives from every spacefaring race. The swarm's threat had been ended not by superior technology or overwhelming force, but by humanity's greatest strength, their wonderful, terrible unpredictability. The galaxy feared us because we were different, Tom addressed the assembly. The swarm fell because they couldn't understand that difference. Perhaps now it's time for all of us to embrace what makes each species unique. High Counselor Max's energy form pulsed with what might have been embarrassment. We put you into stasis because we feared chaos. We never realized that chaos, controlled chaos, human chaos, might be exactly what the galaxy needed. As the council chamber erupted in discussion about the future, Tom smiled. Humanity had awakened to save the galaxy, but they had done more than that. They had shown that strength comes not from conformity or adaptation, but from embracing the beautiful unpredictability of individual thought and action. The galaxy would never be the same, and that was exactly what it needed.